Forgive me if I pronounce names wrong. Bill says he can hear me, so I guess everything's working on the other end. So, you got any questions, holler. We'll try to get some answers here. The weather's really been finicky this year. It's been hard to get queens back mated early. Queen mating is a finicky thing due to the weather. I mean, a week ago Monday, I shoveled snow off the top of the hives to get in and check the boxes when it was going to warm up. So, typically, here in this area, I use the apple trees blooming when it's a good time to start making queens, and they usually bloom third week in March to the second week in April, and here we are going on 3.5 weeks in April, and they're still not bloomed yet. So weather's been pretty finicky. We got Bill Dye and D.D. Busby and Kurt Fryer. Hi all. I'm sure you guys got some questions. Bill says, I'm going to try some splits like David from Barnyard Bee does with his 3-frame nukes. Can you refresh us on how he does it? Well, I think Barnyard runs 2-frame nukes, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, he'll put a frame of bees in there with. Like to use a combination, a frame that's got a little bit of honey on it, and opening cap brood and a lot of bees, and put it in there, and a starter strip. Or if you got drawed foundation, put a frame of drawed comb in there, and either a virgin queen or put a queen cell. I think David does both, and I do both too. I prefer queen cells. Virgins are kind of finicky. Sometimes they accept a virgin, sometimes they don't. And capped queen cell, they about always accept. This time of year, hopefully you guys all been in your boxes and seen what they're looking at. Bees are building pretty good. I was in them actually a week ago tomorrow, and the packages I installed on 8th of April, they was drawed out. They had 3 frames of brood in there, and I had 2 frames of honey I put with them. Tomorrow I'm going to pull a frame of honey out and give them another drawed comb in there so the queen can continue to lay while they're waiting on them to hatch out. They should start hatching their first brood out probably about the 30th this month. Yeah, Bill, if you don't have a queen cell or a virgin queen, just make sure you got eggs in there, and they'll make their own queen, like a walk-away split. Yeah, Kurt Fryer, he commented he wished it was easy getting the queens back mated. Well, early in the spring, it's a little finicky. The weather's real finicky. You get in there, towards the middle of May through 1st of July, queens usually come back pretty good. You got plenty of drones in, the weather's usually fit, and you run, 75% back. If you, you don't have one come back and you still got plenty of bees in the box, just drop another queen cell in it, or put a frame of eggs in there with some bees on it, boost it a little bit, and try it again. As long as you've got eggs, open larvae eggs in a hive, they won't become a laying worker in that hive. Roughly, they got to be without any open brood for roughly 2 weeks before they get a laying worker. Aaron Tarr, hey Joe, I'm concerned with agricultural chemicals such as pesticides. There are several crop fields around me. Is there something to be concerned with? My hives are off to a great start. Well, there's a big debate in the bee world, nanotolds, or however you say it. If the farmer, I'd let the farmer know that I had beehives, and you appreciate that he didn't spray on days that the wind's blowing towards your hives. Insecticides are definitely bad, but most crops like soybeans and corns nowadays, they really don't put much insecticide. About everything's herbicide. Excuse me. There's a big debate on whether herbicide really affects bees. I don't have the answer. I know people that's got bees close to agricultural crops and do just fine, and other people say they have trouble. So I really don't know the answer to that one. D.D. Bushy wants to know how I keep mated queens until they're sold. Well, first part of that answer is I can't keep up, so they're always sold by the time I get them. But on the rare occasion that I would have excess queen and I need to keep a day or two, I put them in a cage. Actually, I've got one up here, I think. Let me see. This is my office. It's full of bee stuff. I actually got just a regular man lake frame, and they got 1/4-inch screen wire in it. And I'll take a queen cage. If I got a mated queen, I'll wire in these here, how many ever I got them, and I'll just drop this frame down into a queenless hive, and they'll take care of them. I mean, you can keep queens banked for a long time, but I prefer not to keep them over a week. Try not to. And like I say, it's very rare that I'm caught up. There, put my daggone. It's very rare that I have queens that's not sold. You just can't hardly keep up. John Riley Sr. just joined the group here. Don Kuchemeister. Hey, Don. I'm trying this. I don't know how good I am at this. I'm sure you've got a question. Like I say, right now, your hives, you should have been through them. Make sure they're queen right. They're laying. Got brood in them right now. It's pretty enough now here in Indiana. You can keep the feed on them. Keep them fed up and keep them growing. You go from one way to another. They go from starving to death to being honey bound. You kind of got to watch for honey bound. The queen's got to have a place to lay. Aaron Tarr, is it possible to overfeed a new hive? If I keep giving them sugar syrup, will they store it and take away egg space? Well, you can overfeed. You can't overfeed to hurt the bees, but yeah, you can overfeed them where they take some space up in the comb. And there's a couple remedies at that. You slow down the feeding. Maybe you only feed them every 3rd day, but you got to keep them fed, or the queens will shut down. They got to feel like there's a honey flow coming in there. Typically, what I do, if they get a frame all filled up and the queen needs a place to lay, I just pull that frame out and make a split with it. Use it that way. Got Richie Hendricks in here. Scott Stevenson, welcome. Don Honor, he's pretty good at these live things. I've never done one. A video, I kind of plan them out and know what I'm going to say here and put you on the spot. Bill Dye, where can a newbie find cheap sugar sources? Up here in Indiana, it's pretty hard. Most beekeepers don't talk about their sugar sources. You just kind of got to look around. I mean, if you got a place that, there's places around that like turn granulated sugar into powdered sugar. If you can get in with them, maybe you can find some cheap sugar. A lot of the scratch and dent stores, outlets, they'll get a pallet that's been rammed in with a forklift, and you occasionally can buy sugar on the cheap. If you're fortunate enough to live in the South, down there on the sugar mills, someplace you can buy seconds, floor sweepings, and it's fine to feed your bees. I'm not a big, a lot of the commercial guys feed corn syrup, and I'm not a big fan of corn syrup. Can a bee stay alive on it? Yes. Does bees thrive on corn syrup? I don't think so. Corn syrup, even the more refined, has a lot of starch in it, and starch is really not good for your bees. But granulated sugar, I mean, a lot of people swear that the only thing they get to feed is cane sugar. I don't believe that. Beet sugar, cane sugar, I don't think I can't tell any difference in it personally. Richie Hendricks wants to know your opinion on pollen traps. Well, pollen, bees need a lot of pollen. An average hive uses between 25 and 55 pounds of pollen a season. So, you know, if a guy wants to collect a little bit on a pollen trap, you know, once a week, and you don't have a lot of hives in one space, because if you got 10, 15, 20 hives in one place, they get plenty of pollen. You run 200 hives in one place, and I'm sure there's places in the South that they got plenty of pollen, but up here I don't. I have pollen dearths, and anything over 20 hives, you really got to substitute dry pollen to give them what they need. It's a pretty important deal, a lot more important than a lot of people is put credence to. But yeah, if you only you want to collect a little bit of pollen to eat, that's fine. A lot of people like it. Alice, I would like to ask about how to deal with drone brood in foundationless, and also how to transition from foundationless to foundationless when the deep frames I have brood in them already. I'm running one deep and one medium currently, so moving the brood frames up isn't an option. I've had a lot of comments, people talking about foundation. I only use starter strips. You know, I've got a couple hundred hives out there in the yard. They never get a full strip of wax in there. The only occasion would be if I didn't have drawed out comb, I would put a full sheet of wax in a package to give the bees someplace to, just a second. And, hey sis, shut the door. The bees to cling on a package, they need someplace to hang. But they draw perfect worker cell. I don't know, people say they put starter strips in there and they draw foundation or drone comb, a lot of drone comb cells. Well, typically a bee only draws what they're needing. If they're in swarm mode, they're going to draw drone comb in a lot of that comb they're drawing. And a lot of times, if you know, starter strips, they draw a lot of drone comb for no reason, it may be a sign that the queen's kind of getting ready to taper off, and she's not the best queen in the world. Old trick that Don Kuchmeister here, Fat Bean Man, told me. He said, if you put a medium frame in a deep box and see what they draw off the bottom. If they draw drone comb off the bottom of a medium frame in a deep box, there's a good chance the queen is going to fail soon or starting to taper off. And if they draw worker cells, everything's fine. Drone comb, try to get it out of the hive. Well, with just running in your case where you're running a medium, you only got a couple options. You either put another deep box on top and checkerboard it up to get it laid out and then remove it. All hives have drones, so drones is not a bad thing. They talk about the mites. All the drone comb you got is cause more mites. The amount of drone comb you have in a hive has nothing to do with the mite count. If you got 10 mites in a hive and there's no drone cells for them to lay in, they'll pick out 10 worker cells. They just prefer drone cells because they're bigger, and it takes 28 days for the drones to hatch versus 21 for the workers. So it helps the mites in that respect. And changing over, basically just take a starter strip and put it between two drawed combs or 2 sheets of foundation, and they'll draw it out just fine. I prefer the fishing string. I think they draw a little straighter, and it's a little more stable in the frames when you do that. And then you'll find that they'll draw the starter strips and leave the full sheets of foundation alone. It's a proven fact, and you'll eventually, after they draw the foundation or the starter strips out, that you can pull the full sheets of foundation, put another starter strip between the two that's drawn out, and they just you'll end up with all the full wax sheets out of there. Hope that answers your question. Hopefully this weather's going to straighten out, and the bees is really going to start building. Been a crazy spring. It really has. Somebody tell me something I need to know then. No questions. I learn every day. Alice said, one of my hives went queenless. I tried adding bees from my strong hive to it and some eggs, pollen, and brood. Do you think this will work? Yeah, if you got eggs in there and they're queenless, they should make cells, and hopefully the weather straightens up where they can get out and get mated. You should be just fine. I mean, not every if you're running 75% on getting queens back mated, that's a pretty good ratio. It's usually less than that for most people, but as long as you got plenty of bees in the hive, you can always put another frame of brood in there, or another frame with eggs on it. It doesn't have to be a great big. That could be just a frame that they're just barely starting to draw out and just got a little patch of eggs on it. They just need one egg to make a queen cell. If they're queenless, that's their only choice. They will make it. I mean, it's no different than making a split. No, they will not make queens from eggs in a drone cell. Those are unfertilized eggs. They will not make a queen out of that. Kelly George wants to know when I'm going to have queens ready. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sold out all the way into probably the latter part of May, probably, before I even think about catching up. This weather's put everybody behind. Now, early spring, once the weather straightens up, now's the time to be thinking about making your splits. If the bees are telling you it's time, bee swarm, they're telling you it's time to be split. Good indication that a hive's getting ready to swarm. You get in there, and I typically put the drone comb over along the corners or on the bottom. When you get total drone comb in a hive is much over a half a frame, they're telling you they're thinking about it. In the next couple of weeks, they're probably gonna take out of there. And is there any surefire way to keep them from swarming? The only surefire way I know is to pull that queen out of there and move her, make a split with her, and leave the other box there. That'll take the swarm out of them real quick. They'll make queen cells, and if it's a big hive, you know, maybe you want to split that double deep 10 frame. You might want to split it 3 or 4 times, not just in half, to get more bees in your apiary. George Anderson wants to know when I plan on grafting. I've been grafting for about 3 weeks now, but all the queens is for my personal use right now. Bill Dye, do you ever reverse your hives to control swarms? I really don't understand the question there, Bill. I am talking you just turning the entrance around to keep them from swarming. I mean, it does mess the bees up for a couple days when they're trying to find their way back in, but I really don't think it would have any effect on whether they swarm or not. Once that queen's run out of room in there to lay, and they've got swarm mode, queen cells made, you can cut them out and reduce them down a little bit by making splits with them, and you may stop them from swarming. But like I say, the only surefire way is to pull the queen. Once they've made queen cells and they're full-blown swarm mode, that's the only guaranteed way. Make a split with the queen and split the other box up on queens. And a lot of people say, well, my bee swarmed, and I had 3 boxes on top of them. They had all the room in the world. That doesn't count. If the bees are only in the bottom box on a deep box or medium, whatever, and that's their brood box, and they're not moving up into another box, you can stack as many boxes on there you want. And when that bottom box gets full, where she has no place to lay, they're going into swarm mode and they're going to leave. If you catch it early enough before they actually go into full-blown swarm mode, you can add another box and checkerboard some frames up out of the bottom into the top so that they're working 2 brood chambers to give that queen a place to lay. Put starter strips in the bottom, and that'll prolong the swarming, and maybe you'll get them through the nectar flow and you've got your honey, and then it's a little easier to manage after the honey flow. They're not as bad about swarming as it is when everything's running wide open. Oh, Bill said reversing it, moving the top box to the bottom. I've never done it. If there was had a box on top of them, they wasn't moving up, they're probably not going to move down either. That's why I would checkerboard it, and that will slow them down. Make her work both boxes, and give her room in the box she was working in with a new foundation or starter strips, whatever you want. Give her a place to lay. Katie, newbie here. I have 2 hives. They are drawed out about half across 6 out of the 8 frames. When do I add another super? Well, I assume that you're in a single brood box. If you're going after honey, most people run a double brood, a deep box or a medium, whatever your brood boxes is. So if it's a single box, just cause it's drawed out, we'll let them have it about 70% full with either honey, pollen, or brood and eggs. The eggs are kind of hard to see. You got to get in there. When they first lay them, they'll just like it be a grain of rice standing straight up in the middle. Day-old eggs will be laying over a little bit, and 2-day-old eggs will be laying flat in the bottom. So 70%, I would probably, if the weather's decent warm, you don't want to disturb the brood nest too much if it's really cold. Get cold night and you can get some chilled brood. So when I checkerboard early like this, I like to try to pull the honey up out of the bottom, honey frames, and put up there and leave all the brood together. And then again, I like to put starter strips in, because if you got 2 frames of brood and you put a full sheet of foundation in there, you block the heat transfer between the 2 frames. I use starter strip and let them draw it out. Keeps them busy, something to do, and they'll draw it out as they need it and migrate to the comb. George Anderson, I've got the beetle traps in the bottom of my hives with a mason jar, jelly jar. No, I never paint them. They're all clear. Seem to work just fine. Never seen the need to. Because I use short jelly jars. They're like quarter pint or something. Typically, the sun will never hit them. Yeah, Katie said she just got 1 frame deep. I would probably try to, here in the next week or so, when they start filling up, checkerboard another deep onto them if the weather's right. You need them temperatures not to be much below 50. Take a chance on chilled brood, but if it's a good strong hive, they'll keep the whole box warm. And if I pronounce your names wrong, I apologize. I'm not a very good name person. Todd Prather. Joe, I've had a drawn frame from a split that didn't work with a little dead brood on it. Can I put some in a strong hive and they'll clean it up? Yeah, they'll clean the dead bees out. Had frames that's moldy, got a little mold on it. I don't like to put a lot of mold in there, but the bees will clean the mold and the dead bees out on a good strong hive. Use it just fine. Yeah, Katie says she's running all mediums. I don't know where you live, but if the temperature's staying in the 40s and you're just using medium boxes, I wouldn't be afraid to move the honey up any time and give her a little more room to lay in there. You need to look in there and see how much she's got laid up on that. She needs to have about 7.5, 8 on an 8-frame box. She needs 7 frames pretty well laid up, and the 8th frame pretty much drawed out before I would want to move them up. Bees work a little better if they're crowded. Don't move them too quick. Hopefully with all this rain we're going to have, a lot of people are going to get quite a bit of honey this year. I've been fortunate this year. The weather's been bad, but I really haven't had everything bloom out like it has in years past and lose it. Really, there's nothing other than dandelions and a few other little grasses, about the only thing I've had bloom. Other than the maples. The maples bloomed early, but we had a warm spell there when the maples was blooming, and they actually got all the benefit out of that before they got turned cold and froze things out. New York, Long Island. Katie's from. I might wait. I'd let them get a little crowded in there. Look, just kind of watch for the drone comb. Make sure they don't start putting a lot of drone cells in there. Up there where you're at, I'd let it warm up, keep them crowded. They'll do better if you do. Right now, you guys got too much time on your hand. You just need to be building boxes. If you're going to make a lot of splits, you can't keep up building equipment. It's a never-ending job. Always something needs to be built. This live stuff's easy as long as people's asking questions. When people are not asking questions, it gets a little tougher. Yeah, hopefully, like I say, the weather breaks and the queens will start coming back, getting well mated and start laying pretty good. I've had a few come back so far this spring, but it's not been the best of odds. Maybe 40–50% at the most, but it's early. All right, Danny. And I'm sure there's some questions out there asked that I don't know the answers to, because you can keep bees for 100 years, and the 100th year you're still going to be learning something. They'll teach you something every day if you pay attention. There's very few things in beekeeping world that's 100%. I know I do a lot of splits, and Don Kuchenmeister, he gets the question all the time too. Well, how many splits can I make out of a double deep 10-frame box loaded with bees? Well, there's a couple things there. You're loaded and mine loaded might be two different things. That's a relative term, but a true box that's loaded, it's on your skill level. I might take that double deep frame and make 18 splits off of that box. And for you, it might 2 splits be what you need to do with what your resources and your knowledge of how to watch for things. Todd, hey Joe, first time beekeeper here. I installed my packages on Wednesday, and the queens are released on Saturday. I'm afraid I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to check for eggs this Saturday, so wish me luck. Yeah, just be careful on the frames. She should be laying in there, but definitely by that time. And on a newbie, when you're working your hives, work slow, watch what you're doing, pry your frames all to one side, take the frame out closest to you. That gives you some space to work. Pull that frame out. That way you don't roll the queen and look, and set that frame out after you find out the queen's not on that, and work your way in. Just that way you pull a frame away each time, and you got plenty of room, and the chances of rolling the queen is far less. Randy, hey Joe, my question is I have some 5-frame nukes coming now. How many ways can I split them, or should I just put them in an 8-frame box and feed them up till next spring and split them? Well, that's kind of like I was talking a while ago. A good 5-frame box early in the spring, you can't do it in the middle of summer. Splits in the middle of summer is totally different splits in early spring. If there's a good strong box, you can take a split out of it right away, easy enough. Should be no problem if they're good strong nukes. On my nuke boxes here that I'm running, when I make a split off of them, I take 5-frame box and make 4 splits, a total of 5 boxes early in the spring. I got to get the numbers out there and play the numbers game. You know, if I lose 2, doing 5, I lose 2, I'm still got 3 ahead. If you do 1 and lose 1, you're even. So I just got to play the numbers game on splits. They don't always work. Some of the best leg plans work fine, some don't. Randy, my question is, I have some, I just answered that one. I've been making a lot of 1-frame splits in a 2-frame box. They're just 2 frames in the box, and that's the size of the box. And they seem to really be keeping it warm and doing fine. I made them splits back on April 1st. And I've had 3 nights that it was down in around 20 degrees, and they had a queen cell in there, and they raised a queen, and half of them come back mated. So I can't complain about the 2-frame boxes early in the spring on a 1-frame split. I'm hoping. I put some packages in back on, like I say, the 8th and 9th of this month, and I'm going in tomorrow. It's supposed to be pretty here. Excuse me. I'm going to, I put 2 frames of honey in there and 3 drawed combs. So I want them to go to town, and the queens are all laid up, all 3 of them. So tomorrow I'm going in, I'm actually going to pull a frame of honey out and give them another drawed comb, because I got plenty of drawed combs. So I'm going to put there so the queen will have a place to lay. I don't want her sitting idle until they start hatching here toward the end of the month. Once they start hatching, that'll free up space for her to lay. And the reason I put 2 frames of honey instead of 1, I had plenty of it, and I wanted to have bees covering it, so I didn't have to worry about the hive beetles getting in it. Alice wants to know if you can get honey from nukes. She says, I notice I run nukes. Well, this yard here is my splitting yard, and I've got a mating yard, and then I've got a away yard that's got my 8-frame stuff in it. But yeah, you can. I pull more honey off these 5-frame boxes than I care for. It's a mess. I've got plenty of honey. You kind of just got to watch them a little closer. They have a tendency to swarm, but yeah, you can. I don't know. Last year out of this little nuke yard, and it's a sale yard. I mean, I sell nukes and everything out of it, and I think I extracted like 4 or 5 gallon buckets of honey off of it, and I still left plenty of honey out there for them all winter. So yeah, you work it right, and that, because I don't let them get that strong. These are all weak. You let a nuke build up and keep stacking honey super on it and manage it right, they'll probably outproduce an 8 or 10 frame for the size, because you can have more nukes than you can have 8 and 10 frame in the same space. Let's see here. Make sure I don't miss anything. Charles Howell, he wants to know my preferred way to treat mites in the spring. The only way I treat for mites with oxalic acid. I would have liked to already treated this year, but it's just been cool and nasty, and I didn't have a very high mite count going into the fall. I treat, I use a Pro-Vape, and it's no better than just a regular old wand vaporizer you put in it. You got, under 10, 15 hives, the wand does a great job. It's just so time consuming when you run a couple 100 hives. The Pro-Vape is so much faster for me. Typically I treat, when I start treating, I'll treat 3 weeks in a row on that same day. If I treat on Saturday, I try to treat 2 more Saturdays in a row. And as much viruses and stuff that the mites carry nowadays, I treat once a month after that all summer long. And then coming back into late October, about late October, I'll treat 3 weekends in a row again going into winter. Make sure they have no mite load going in. And that's how I treat for mites. Danny, not seeing no eggs, got some drones and a queen cell. Can't find the queen. Don't know what to do. To wait and see. Well, if you've got a queen cell in there, there's probably not a queen. Hopefully it's a good queen cell, and they should make a queen, and hopefully she come back and get mated. If you got other bees, you could always put a frame in there with a few eggs on it, and if that queen cell's no good, they'll make them another queen. It either sounds like they, I don't know where you're from. It sounds out like they've already swarmed out, or the queen just died of natural causes, or a lot of things can, cause a hive to go queenless. Yeah, Danny, I mean, like I say, there's a lot of things can cause a hive to go queenless. You could have been in there checking the hive and accidentally mashed her, rolled her. She could have been failing, wasn't a well-mated queen, and she was failing, and they decided to supersede her. I'm going to say that probably 20% of all packages that are installed in the United States, the hives supersede the queen within the first 6 weeks. So you can go along and act like it's going gangbusters, and then they'll supersede her and make a new queen. There'll be a time period in there that there won't be no eggs or any larvae. It takes, from the time they lay an egg to the time you get a mated queen back, takes 28 days. It just, you're not going to find eggs in there for a period of 28 days from the time they go queenless. Alice wants to know if I use swarm traps. Not really. It's easier for me to make a split than it is to go out there and chasing swarms. There's several empty boxes here in the yard, and every once in a while I get a swarm move into a box. Baiting, it's the luck of the draw. I mean, a lot of people use lemongrass oil, but you got to use lemongrass oil sparingly. It attracts bees, but if it's too strong, it acts as a repellent against bees. And if I was going to use lemongrass in a bait trap, I would put a cotton ball, put a couple drops on a cotton ball, and put it in a plastic bag, and put me a half a dozen pinholes in it. Just something to get the scent there and not override the bee's sense of smell. I mean, a bee, his whole life is on a sense of smell. They smell better than a dog does. I forget how many times, but they can smell unreal. I think most there again, some swarms go in the ground 2 foot off the ground, and the next one will be 30 foot in a tree. They say that average to set a swarm trap up ought to be about 10 foot off the ground. You'll have better luck setting swarm traps on edges, like fence lines in a field in the woods. A creek gives a straight line, a power line cut or a gas line cut going through their edges seems to be more productive for catching swarms. And I don't know, just a tidbit to throw out there. If you catch a real monster swarm, you're talking a 5-gallon bucket size swarm. That's a lot of bees. And they swarmed out of a hive, so they're in swarm mode. To catch them and put them in a box and expect them to stay there is probably at best 50-50. Because they swarm there, they probably swarm out. I like to, when I catch a swarm, I shake them out on the ground on a sheet, and I get all the queens out of it. And then I'll take all the other queens. If I got 5 queens in that swarm, I'll divide them bees up into 5 different boxes, and it seems to take the swarm mode out of them a lot better, and they seem to stay. And open brood, if you catch a small swarm and you put just a small frame of open brood in there, it has a tendency to hold bees pretty good. Just increases the odds. There's no guarantees on anything in the bee world. Alicia says she's running 10 frame Langstroth hives and would like to build her own boxes and wants to know if rabbit joints will be strong enough. That's all I use on mine. I use a 3/8 by 3/4 rabbit. I glue my boxes. I staple mine with 1.5 1/4 crown staples. Some people use the wider staple. I just don't typically. I don't have any trouble. I'm the only one handling my boxes, and I've never had one come apart, so it seems to work just fine. Yeah, I would suggest you use coated staples versus just standard metal staples. Coated staples got that glue on there. Once you drive them in and they heat up from driving in, you ain't going to pull them out. They're there, and the glue keeps them rigid, square. Danny Crane, he wants to know what tips for finding the queen. Finding the queen is a art that it takes time to perfect. If you look for a single bee like you're looking for just that queen, the chances are you'll never see her. Just very on a rare occasion. I like to hold my frames out at arm's length and tip them at about, I don't know, a pretty good angle from me and look across the frame. And for whatever reason, the queen will just stick out better looking across it like that at that angle. She's a little taller, and after you train your eye just to glance over a frame, you're not looking for an individual beat. Your eye will just automatically go right to that queen. And after you look at several 10,000 frames, you get to where you pick queens out pretty quick. Charles Howley said, I've already caught 2 nice size swarms the past week. I had a small group of bees ball up under the front of the hive, so I caught them and put them in a hive. When I checked on them later, they had gone back to the original hive. A day later, they were out again. I caught them again and placed them in another box. Why do you think they act this way? Bees will be bees. Sometimes you get one like that, it may have been a virgin queen that was in that swarm and come off of there, and maybe she was just flying out and getting mated, and she hadn't made it back to the box yet when you caught her the second time. And like I say, on things like that, if it's a mated queen in there and you put your little bit of open brood in there, it has a tendency to hold them swarms like that. I appreciate everybody that's come in here tonight. It's a new thing, and we kind of leave some comments later on and see what you think about things. Can't do this on a regular basis, but maybe once a month or something we might do it. Beekeeping keep the guy pretty busy. And like I say, appreciate all you who's coming. Visit our YouTube channel, Little Bits Honeybees, and put a lot of videos on there on how-tos and this, that, and the other. I think you can learn a lot. Appreciate y'all guys coming in. You have a great week.